Hello, Casey. This is Tyler Smith, and I'm doing my Old Testament history project here for you. Um, so the date is 11/1/2011. Thank God, we're out of October. But yeah, so my assignment was history books. Select four leadership qualities, either positive or negative, demonstrated by key individuals mentioned in the history books. And how can these character qualities instruct you as a leader in your current sphere of influence, and include practical applications? So for me, I've actually had a lot of fun with this assignment, and I've been learning a lot and stuff. Just going through the history books and just kind of getting to know a little bit about these four guys that I chose. And the four guys I chose were Joshua, Nehemiah, Saul, and David. And why I chose these four guys and stuff was for a bunch of different reasons. I love them all so much, except for Saul. He was kind of a bit of a goofball. But I just loved reading about them and stuff. But with Joshua, I chose strength. Now for me, this guy kind of hits home a little bit because my little brother's name is Joshua, and he's just, strong as a bull on the football team, all that stuff. But I really saw Joshua's strength in a threefold way, almost like the Trinity, just in his mind, in his body, and in his spirit. First off, his body, had to be trained to be a warrior. I was guessing he was pretty physically fit. He knew how to use a sword. He was precise. He knew how to go to battle and go to town on some bad guys. But also in his mind, he was strong. He knew tactics, and he knew how to behave himself on the battlefield and how to control and lead his men. He was a strong man mentally and stuff. But to me, where his real strength come from is in his spirit. My favorite story of him is when him and Moses are in the temple. Moses gets up to leave, and Joshua stays behind. I mean, that right there just says so much about the man, that he knew that his strength didn't come from himself, but oh man, I just had some jelly or something. But his strength didn't come from himself, but it came from God, and that's where I really see his true strength relying, is that he's putting himself, not his faith in himself, but in God. And we saw the results from that and stuff as well. Like, he marched around in the walls of Jericho and stuff for 7 days, just doing something that seems totally crazy because he had strength in God, and he knew that God would protect him and cover for him and do the things he wants to do for him. And he saw results. For me in my life, I want to be strong and stuff in my spirit and my mind and my body, but mostly in my spirit, just because my strength, it doesn't come from me. I don't have the strength to get through another day if God's not with me, leading my path, and at the forefront of my mind and stuff. And so, just take away from that is just be strong in your spirit and be strong in who you are with God, and know where your strength resides. With me as well, I chose Nehemiah for his determination. I've never even known the name of Nehemiah aside from my Bible reading in the Old Testament this year. I didn't even know who the guy was. But something about him has just really struck a chord in my heart, just with how determined he was and just how strong of a man he was. So yeah, with his determination in building the walls, I mean, he came with an order. He knew what he wanted to do. He had a plan. The planning is important, but he came with a plan, and he knew that God wanted this to be done and stuff. And so he went in there against fierce opposition from governors, from the people, from opposing people outside the cities. And even though his life was at stake and stuff, he still carried on. He built those walls in a record 52 days, which to me that's such a thing of God, because it's impossible to do today as well, and it's gonna be possible to do in the future. I mean, it's that monumental. And so we see that with determination stuff, we can do anything. Like for me in my life, I'm going through kind of a hard time, as I've got about $10 to my name right now. It's a fun time, but it's definitely a time in which I'm being pushed, and I've got to throw my determination out there to continue on, because even though it's getting hard, times are getting tough and all that, I know that God has a plan and a way for this. For me this year, I'm building up my walls around Jerusalem right now, and I'm not going to let people come in and try and destroy them or take them down. I'm going to make this year what I want to make it, and that's I believe that's what God wants to make it. And so I've got my determination set up too. Hopefully I'll be as strong as Nehemiah, but I can do all things with God, like Joshua with his strength. But I chose one of a negative thing too. For me, Saul, it's definitely a goofball. I mean, he came out of such an anointed covering. God placed him in such a high spot, and then he just comes right out of that covering. He takes on his own wisdom, and so I was choosing disobedience with Saul, because straight up he was stupid. He made sacrifices and all that stuff when he wasn't supposed to. He pursued David. He was jealous of his kingdom. He tried to hold on to it like someone tries to hold on to water or sand. You try and hold on to it as hard as you can. but in reality, it's just going to fall out and leak out through your fingers. You don't want to waste your life or waste your time on this earth. For me, that's my biggest takeaway. It's not to be obedient to God, although that is a big takeaway. It's not to waste your life. Saul, to me, he led a wasted life. After he came out of the covering, he's pursuing earthly things and all that stuff. And I don't want to pursue earthly things. To me, that stuff, it's all going to burn. I want to be pursuing the things that God wants me to be pursuing. And I know that in that life I'll be fulfilled. Whether it's going out into Brazil, ministering to the jungle peoples I feel I'm called to, or going down in the streets of LA and handing out food and talking to the homeless, or some dude that just shot up meth, or even just taking a cubicle job. Being my goal being ministering to the guy across me in that cubicle and bringing him to the Lord. Whatever He wants for me, I want to be happy. That's what I want to make my life about. And lastly, I chose David. Gosh, I love David, as I'm sure everyone does. But I chose his smarts actually. For some reason, I was reading through 2 Samuel. It wasn't a part of my Bible reading. I was just like, okay, this looks kind of cool. Battle and stuff. And so I was reading through Absalom, and in 2 Samuel 15 and stuff and on. That book just blew my mind to pieces. Just how incredibly smart and gifted God made David with his smarts. The man, Absalom, his son, was pursuing him, trying to kill him and take over his kingdom and all that. And yet, he knew that in his fleeing and stuff that he would have to, set up people, and so he left people behind in key positions and strategies, in order to reclaim his kingdom and reclaim what was his. And so it just shows me that, sometimes in my life, I might have to flee, and I might have to get out of a certain situation because my life might be at stake, or there's some bad ill will for me. You kind of get out of some stuff sometimes. But it teaches me, don't flee without a plan. David had a plan in action and stuff so that he would be able to return and reclaim what was his and what God had given to him, for when that opposition came and stuff. So, for me, whatever's going on, I'm gonna have a plan when I flee, or whenever I'm going into some place as well. He went into, he went out of Jerusalem into other places and stuff with a plan there set up, sort of, a little shaky, but I definitely just want to have a plan set up for my life and for what I'm doing with where I'm going. And so, yeah, it just really goes to show you that looking from these 4 men's lives, there's so many more men and women in the Bible that we can learn from. Good gosh, like if this sort of assignment's affecting me and just kind of how living my life and, practically using this stuff as a leader and everything, what more can just going through the Bible and doing more stuff like this, teach me? And so it's actually kind of motivating me in my Bible studies and personal times, to actually look at the character qualities and match them up with my life, and what can I take away from it, more so than just, oh, that was a good Bible reading, check off. But what can I actually do in this? Like, what would I have done in this situation? How can I, apply this to my daily life and journal it? Keep it down and do all that stuff. But yeah, there's my assignment for you, Casey. I actually had a lot of fun with this. I was trying to do a PowerPoint and it totally went screwy, and so I was like, what? Video. That's how I want to get my ideas across. And so I really enjoyed this aspect of it. I thank you for your time and stuff. I hope as you read through this, I get an A, but I'm just having fun with it. So thanks, Casey. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.